I do 2 claps, he does 1. We should be dancing. What's that dance where they keep doing like that all the time? Flamenco dancing. I can just see you in a flamenco skirt.
It gets to that rev limiter quick. We're doing some miles an hour.
I'm late for work and my fuel light has just come on. So I'm going to be even later for work.
So welcome everyone. This is kind of part 2 from podcast 3, if I'm keeping up, because we kind of realised that we'd got more vehicles, more bikes to talk about, and we didn't want the podcast to last for 42 years. So we thought we'll split it in half. So this is podcast number 4.
So it's only going to last 11 years, 12 years.
Yeah, we're being kind to the viewers. This is more of our dream garage.
Dream garage, money, no object, what would you own?
And why?
Yeah.
So I think to summarise, for me, I think I had the Toyota GR4 Yaris, because that's awesome. Alpha 155. We had the Lancia Integrale for sure, and a couple of Ferraris, which was the Ferrari FF because it was a 4-seater, and the Ferrari 458 Speciale because I think that's one of the last Ferraris that I like the look of. You had, this would be a good test for Aki if he remembers, what 5 bikes did you choose in that video?
I don't need to remember.
They're in there, they're clearly in your head and they're on a list.
Suzuki Hayabusa, KTM Super Duke 1290R, Honda Fireblade. I think that's 4, isn't it? Was that 4?
It's on your list. You should have put numbers on them.
Oh yeah, and the Triumph Speed Triple.
Yes, we had the Triumph.
1200R. But I think
because we like the sound of a Triumph
4. Yeah,
Triple.
That was 4. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, you didn't give number 5, did you?
No, I
So you need to go number 5 first then.
Okay, fine.
Because I'm already on 5.
It would be a 1986 Honda CBR 600F.
So an 1986.
Yes.
Awesome.
That was my first ever motorcycle. When I was 18 years old, I bought this. It was a 600, my first bike. Didn't know how to ride. There's so much I could talk to you about that bike, but again, we don't want it to be 12 years.
Well, we're doing what we've previously owned in a future video, aren't we?
Yeah.
With some stories behind it.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there. So the point is, it would be a 1986 model in the same colour as the one I had, but it would be Dream Garage, as in it would be meticulously restored to look like new. So it would be a restored. What would be an added bonus if I could actually get the one I had, because I don't know about you,
it'd be
but
awesome.
I still remember all the registration numbers for all the bikes I've ever owned.
And I would love to purchase something I've owned before.
Yeah, it was a D-Reg, it was an 88 model, but the model came out itself in 86.
And what a bike.
Yeah.
So if this is mint or restored back to mint in your dream garage, would you use it?
Oh, yes.
You and your language. For the benefit of our viewers, Aki just said, yes, he would like to.
Yes. Yeah.
But you would,
would I?
So you wouldn't just keep it there as a sort of shiny.
No,
well,
no,
I guess it would only go out in good weather.
Oh,
though.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, quite frankly, because I'm old.
So that's only 9 days a year then in
fragile.
the UK.
I only ever go out when it's good weather now anyway.
Right, okay.
Because I've done my time of riding through winters, and I like my warmth, quite frankly.
And I guess as I bring the car element to this podcast, I tend to stay dry in my cars.
Yeah.
Well, I have a Cabrio Smart, I suppose, if the roof doesn't go back up, but I tend to stay dry.
Go on, what's
in my
your
cars.
next one then?
That's one of the downsides of a biking, I guess. I would want a Phase 1 generation Renault Clio Williams with the gold wheels. No arguments, no discussion.
Was this the one that came out in the royal blue?
Yes. Well, it is a blue.
But I'm guessing as in special edition because it only came out in that colour.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Gold wheels.
The gold wheels, yeah.
I think initially...
Did it have a gold trim as well?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I think initially Renault's plan was just for it to be a limited run, but then you had a Phase 2 and then you had a Phase 3, because ultimately people wanted to buy these cars.
Did you say Williams as well?
It's Clio Williams.
Yeah.
Obviously the tie-up with, the Williams Formula 1 racing team. What a car. So find me one in as best condition as possible, and if it's money no object, you would find the best condition as possible. And like you, yes, I would drive it, but again, like you, I'd only drive it on a sunny day. So it would go out 9 times a year.
Yeah.
So that would be my car number 6.
Yeah.
What's bike number 6?
Again, it would be a restored motorcycle and one that I rode back in 1988. This will be a 1986. Well, actually, the model came out in 86 or 85, but this it will be a 1988 Suzuki GSXR 1100.
Okay.
Because I rode one night back then.
I know the name, but I can't picture the bike. But we'll put it on screen.
Yeah, and obviously I'd get one that's completely restored back to the way it was. But again, it's another one of these bikes that just completely blew my mind. Bearing in mind, it was one of the genre-defining bikes when it was released. And when I rode it, I was, 19 years old?
Oh.
So pretty much zero.
Just 5 years ago, Ak.
Yeah, so pretty much zero biking experience at that point, and I'm let loose on an absolute beast of a bike. Obviously, it's relative compared to bikes now. It's not massively big, powerful, or anything like that. But as I said, it's all relative. Going back like 35 years or whenever that was, with zero biking experience, I spent a night on that. My God, stories I could tell you of what I got up to.
Keep those for a future podcast.
No, agreed. So what's your number?
What do you think that value
7?
would be of that now? I know it's money, no object, but how much do you think you'd need to spend?
I think to buy one, a good example now is, to be honest, I'm actually guessing because I don't actually know, but it's not going to be any more than, I reckon about $5,000. But to be honest, if anyone actually knows, it's a bit of a guess. I don't actually know.
I guess it's worth what someone's willing to pay, as
Agreed.
we've said before.
But then there's I'd want a proper nut and bolt restoration done. I literally want it taken down to nut and bolt and then built
unless
back
by
up
some
again.
miracle you happen to find one that's lived all of its life
Agreed.
in a garage and has got minimal miles.
Absolutely.
and one owner.
Absolutely. But my word, what a beautiful, beautiful looking motorcycle that was. Much better than all the current bikes, in my opinion.
So I'll pick something older as well then. I would want a first generation seems to be a bit of a theme for me, doesn't it? I would want first generation a Lexus LS400. So the LS400 was the first Lexus.
Is that the big
effectively.
bulbous thing?
So I trust that means Aki not a fan. It was the big bulbous thing.
No. I just want to identify the car.
It's the
I
big
know
bulbous
the one you
thing.
mean.
It's the one on screen now.
Kind of a bit like the Honda.
Legend.
That kind of size and shape-ish.
Which I owned, and that will be in a future podcast.
Yeah.
It shook up the market because this Japanese manufacturer that threw so many yen at it came up with the ultimate car, didn't they? And it shook Mercedes and BMW because...
You mean as in...
It was perfect.
Shook the executive kind of saloon
for
car
its
world
marketplace,
type thing.
yes.
Right, fine.
Super smooth, balance a coin on its edge on the engine as you're revving it. It's so well built, so well engineered. There's still some going around today, even though it was a 1990, early 90s car. It's just a phenomenal piece of kit. Okay, the dashboards had some weird, funky optics or whatever to make it light up started to fail after 20 years, but as a car and as a design concept, it shook up Mercedes.
Yeah.
Because the option back then would have been Mercedes S-Class, which was always the best of the best and always had the most technology, and the Lexus LS. And for me, okay, the badge was new, so it was difficult for them to compete with the likes of Mercedes, but as an engineering piece of work, Lexus LS400. So yeah, find me an unrestored, unmolested, low miles Lexus LS400. Next one, Ak, as I consult my list. And you consult yours.
My last one. Oh, and it's a modern bike. It's a new reimagining of a 90s classic Honda bike. They had a couple of bikes back in the 90s, a 600 version and a 900 version. They were nakeds and they were called Hornets.
Okay.
And they were basically dirt cheap, cheerful, exciting to ride motorcycles. I can't comment about the 900 because I never rode it, but I rode the 600 back in the day, and the bike press loved it, and the bike fans themselves, they absolutely loved it because of what you got for your money. It was just, well, touted as a no frills street bike.
Okay.
and it was just amazing. But anyway,
I
fast
guess
forward the new one.
lightweight therefore, if it's no frills.
They've started it a couple of years ago with the CB750 Hornet, and imminently they'll be releasing the 1000 Hornet, which is 155 brake horsepower. It's the two versions, the basic one and the SP. The SP's basically got Brembo brakes, which are the best brakes you can get for a motorbike, and it's got Odin suspension all round. Again, best suspension you can get for a street bike. And so far, the reviews that I've seen on it, everybody absolutely rates it, especially some guy that I like watching. What's his name? Is it Michael Neves, I think his name is? Or he's known as Nevesy. He's a chief road tester, editor for Motorcycle News.
Okay.
So if anyone knows anything about bikes,
he's ridden a few.
Yeah. And he's overjoyed with it. And it looks beautiful. And it's dirt cheap for what it is. Where I said, for example, the Hayabusa is like 17.5 grand. This bike, slightly different type of bike, but still a big, still a big bike, 1 litre. I think the SP, the standard version, comes in, I think, 8,999, 9 grand. And the SP,
I think I've said
with
in
all
a
the
previous
goodies,
podcast, in car terms, that's not a lot of money.
The SP is only £1,000 more, so the SP is only it's only £10,000, £9,999.
Okay.
From what you get, or what you will get for your money, it's just staggering.
So you
And
buy.
it's a Honda. I do like my Hondas.
So you buy this brand new.
Yeah.
It goes into this wonderful custom built building, especially for your Exotica that you're
Collection.
parking in. Are you going to use it?
Oh God, yeah.
You're still going to use it.
Oh yeah.
I asked that question
There's
because
not a single bike that I would buy, money no object,
that would
I
just sit on a shelf, on a
No.
rack.
I mean, there are some absolute classics going back to like the 60s, the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Classic Ducatis and other bits and pieces I won't bore you with now. I'd still ride them. There's not a single thing I would own and not use. I don't see the point in it.
They were made to be used, weren't they?
Yeah,
And it's the same in the
absolutely.
car world.
And we're not talking about it'll be my daily driver or daily rider.
No,
God,
no.
no.
It's the same in the classic car world.
Yeah.
I quite often when I go to shows, you see a car being trailered in, and no disrespect to the owner. If you're keeping that model in absolute pristine condition and that's how you want to do it, you're preserving history. I get it. I would prefer to drive a car into a classic car show.
Yeah.
Rather than take it on the back of a trailer.
No, agreed.
So my next car,
Well, your last car, isn't it?
I'm not so sure. I think we need to pick a couple more because in the first of these 2 videos, I did 5 and you did 4, didn't you? So if you're only going to do 2, I think you need to sit there and consider at least one more bike while I discuss one of my absolute loves. I'm not an absolute devoted Ford fanboy, even though I own a lovely Mark II Ford Fiesta. However, Escort RS 1600i, so Mark III. I know they were available in black.
Was Mark III the squarer one or the one that was
it's
just
squarer.
slightly rounded?
Squarer.
Fine, Mark III.
Yeah. So Mark III RS 1600i. I know they were available in white, the blue. I don't know if it was Caspian blue, red, black, and silver. A white RS 1600i. Mwah. Again, you would hope it was a one owner, looked after car that's only ever really seen the light of day twice a year. Otherwise, go through nut and bolt restoration and get it absolutely mint again. It was unique. You'd open the bonnet, and although the engine was quite recognisable, you had a twin coil pack sitting at the side. The interior was unique to the RS16i. It had these lovely slim headrests instead of the bulkier options at the standard Mark. It just looks lovely. The wheels, the side skirt, the graphics, the decals. It's just a beautiful piece of kit. So I would have to have an Escort RS 1600i.
Okay. We're doing one more each?
Yeah, let's do one more each.
Okay. I'm trying to think the year. We're back in the same sort of era as the restored 1986 Honda CBR 600. I mean,
Maybe 80s was just a good time for cars and bikes.
It was just a good time generally.
To be fair.
Yeah. Oh boy, I wish we could go back there. But anyway.
And the music was better.
Oh, considerably.
But moving on.
Yeah, moving on. It was a Ducati. I think it was a 906 or a 916 capacity, but it was called a Passo.
Okay.
A PASO.
We'll put it on screen.
kind of almost like jelly mold-ish, but it was one of the first bikes from Ducati, I think, that was completely enclosed and shrouded by a full fairing.
Okay.
As in completely, the whole thing looked very space age, looked very bulbousy, but very space age.
So not that you're
completely enclosed.
Not that you ever want to drop a bike, but that sounds expensive if you drop that one then.
Well, yeah, it would be because they're classics now. But it just looked utterly beautiful, and by God, did I desperately want one.
Okay.
But obviously, at that time, the same sort of era that I got my first bike, the Honda. But the point is, the Honda cost me back then $2,500, $3,000, $3,500 or something.
Back then.
Obviously back then. But at the same time, the Ducati was like 3 times as much. Because it's a Ducati. Even now, they're considerably more than any other bike.
Is it too easy for this car person to sit here and say, is the Ducati the equivalent to Ferrari in bike world?
Arguably, yeah. I would
Or is
say
that just
yes.
a well-worn phrase that this car person doesn't really know?
To keep it simple, I would argue and say yes, even though it's not exclusively sports bikes, because Ferrari's exclusively sports cars. But then again, you've got the FF.
Yes.
And I've also seen recently, haven't they done like a big MPV kind of Range Rover-y type Ferrari?
SUV one, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
The
SUV.
Pura
yeah.
Sangue.
Fine.
There's a name.
So yeah, arguably yes, because Ducati has got a lot of sports bike and it's got a lot of non-sports bikes. But if you want to compare the two marques with regards to price and exclusivity, yeah, I would argue Ducati is the Ferrari of the bike world.
So that's your final offer then for that bike?
Yeah, the Passo. Ducati Passo from the late 80s, early 90s.
And I know when we said Ferraris, I don't know if it was the previous podcast, that we think, because we're a bit old-fashioned, that they should be red. For the Ducati, is there another option other than red?
Some are, but mostly red.
All the ones I remember seeing at the shows that we've gone to
Yeah,
together
are all reds.
at the NEC.
Yeah, I mean, historically there have been a couple of yellows, and there are certain bikes in the Triumph Scrambler range which are yellow.
Okay.
There have been some grey ones historically.
Typically, the ones I've seen have all been red.
Yeah, but mostly, and quite frankly, it's the same thing with the Ferrari.
It's got to be red.
It's got to be red. Yeah.
That leads to the last one for this little sort of episode 2 of the podcast, isn't it? Even though it's podcast number 4, how confusing. What car shall I end up on as my dream garage? I've always loved, and obviously used to watch Colin McRae racing Subaru Imprezas and stuff like that. But instead of going Subaru Impreza, I would choose its natural competitor.
Ooh, I won't
the very
mention
last,
it, but I think I know what it is.
The last generation, it's basically a Mitsubishi Lancer, but it's called an Evo, isn't it? And I think it was Evo 10. And it's something like an I'll put it on screen now. It's either an FQ400 or something. Now, you could argue what the FQ stands for, and I can certainly come up with something that it could stand for. But let's say it's 400 horsepower. Ooh. It's a 5-seater, 4-door saloon car. I think it's still a 2-litre engine, 4-cylinder engine.
Wow, with 400
That
brake.
is massive horsepower. So massive, the one downside, but it's money, no object, so who cares? I think they have to be serviced every, I don't know, it's 3,000 miles or 4,000 miles, even though it's a modern. But what a piece of
400 brake horsepower in a little saloon car.
In a 4-door saloon car.
Wow.
It's probably got more computers than NASA's spaceships.
Probably.
Keeping you on the road. It's a 2-litre turbocharged monster.
Wow.
And I'm sure it's called something like FQ4. Whatever the number is, it relates, of course, to the horsepower. But what a car. What a thing to have in a collection of cars. And again, yes, it would be driven, but only driven on a good day.
Yeah.
I think we round that one off.
Absolutely.
So, for dream cars, we haven't spent every penny in the world, have we?
No, I'd say
We've been quite modest.
Not scratched the surface, really.
We've been quite modest, haven't we?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll touch on it in the future at some point and go to the extreme end. But to be quite honest, although I love most cars, that Mitsubishi would do a lot more for me than most Ferraris or Lamborghinis or whatever, because I think as an engineering exercise...
Yeah. True.
It's just a phenomenal piece of kit.
So you'd say no to a Veyron then?
I wouldn't say no to anything, but I'd probably end up selling them if I didn't want to keep them, and I'd just keep the money instead, buy something else that I want. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the end of podcast number 4. Like, comment, subscribe, as they say on all these YouTube type videos, and we'll see you on the next one.